Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Expo podcast series. Once again, I'm from beautiful, sunny, tropical trees, palm tree laden Canton, Ohio. Of course, that's fake, but it's always good to be here. And it's always good to have my good friend, Joe Bond from Fantasy Six Pack. I've been friends for years. We've known each other long before the Expo. I've always kept in touch, always been on each other's podcast. So, Joe, welcome to the show. Always great to have you. I know you just got the kids to bed. How's everything going today? You said it's pretty busy, which I'm sure it is.
Yeah, man. No, it's been good. It has been busy. We're actually I've been interviewing all week for interviewing people for different positions on the site. So I've had like an average of 3 a day the last few days. So I got 3 more tomorrow. So I think that's it. But yeah, it's been a lot of talking all week, so I'm here to talk some more. It'd be a good time, man. Exactly. Thanks for having me on.
Fun is that? We're going to get to how Fantasy Six Pack has grown into the fact that you're interviewing people. That's been amazing. So we'll talk about that growth a little bit, but let's take a few steps back here, Joe, and let's talk about what year, who, when, how did you find out about this interesting thing called fantasy football? And how you got into it, your first year, your first league, friends, family, who got you intrigued into this, and talk about that experience of getting involved in the fantasy football industry, just playing the game.
Yeah. So actually, I was in college. So
this 2 years ago?
No, dude.
No.
I'm older than you think. Okay. No, so I was in college. I want to say it was my sophomore year, junior year, something like that.
What year is this?
I want to say it was 2002.
Okay.
So fall of junior
about 20
year.
years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
You are old. Jeez.
So thanks.
There's a guy who's turning 60 this year. Right. Exactly. Right.
No, so had somebody walk up to me and they were just like, "Hey, you want to play this thing called fantasy football?" And I was like, "The hell's that?" And like, yeah, you just play, you set rosters, fantasy, football players, blah blah blah. They show stats, they get points, and I was like, "Sure, sounds fun. How do we do it?" And they're like, "Yeah, just sign up and we'll auto draft on Yahoo and we'll go from there."
So you didn't even draft your first
No,
year?
we had no idea what we were doing. So God. Yeah, I ended up getting like LaDainian Tomlinson or something. I did very well that year. Ended up getting second place in the league overall. Nice. Funny story is I lost to the person who I ended up starting Fantasy Six Pack with. He's no longer with it, but that's just it all kind of like circled back to that. It was really funny. But that's how I got in, and I fell in love with it immediately. Like I loved diving into the stats. When I was growing up, I used to go through the sports page and like cut out all the box scores and study them and baseball and football, no matter what it was. Like that's what I did. So like there was like game involved that I could like win and lose at that involved
that I already memorized
basically anyway. Box scores. This is fantastic. Yeah, it was a no-brainer for me that I was just gonna like be obsessed with it.
Yeah. Again, I'm older. I'm long before the internet world, and people said, "Well, how did you get involved in stats?" And I said, "Well, honestly, I was one of those kids. Again, this is we're talking 1970s. Every time I would get a dime or a quarter, I ran down the street to my local. I lived in a little small town, USA, little grocery store in town, and I would buy a pack of baseball cards or football cards or whatever the season was, basketball." And I would read the back and I would read all the stuff and look at the stats and try to remember that, oh my gosh, Joe Namath threw, 24 touchdowns last year. And that was my stats world when I was like, 8, 9, 10 years old, because I just look at the cards and I go through them and, and I'd sort them and put them in, all that stuff. And that was kind of my start to it. And, and then I also, like, people were talking about Stratomatic baseball and football. We used to have those kind of games. You'd roll dice and how many yards based on the dice roll this guy would get, I
feel like that would have been something I would have gotten into if it had been something a little bit more popular when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, like I also remember like as I started progressing into fantasy football, I'm still in college, and then like even just just very post college. I don't know if you remember, they had that phone number like this was like before the internet was like, everywhere, like tip of your fingers.
Right.
I still have flip phones, right? And so you would call the phone number if you're out at night, getting your box scores. Like, it was great. I used to do that.
Crazy, yeah.
I'm out at the bar drinking with my buddies. Like, hang on, guys, I got to call. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, sweetie, hit a home run. Like something like that. Or, yeah, he scored a touchdown, whatever. Like, that's what it was.
I remember that.
I have some like 1-800 number. It was free. I do know that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Cool. All right. Well, Joe, so you started 20 some years ago. You got started playing. How long before you started to kind of have this burning desire, like, hey, you know what? I'm pretty smart at this. I'm starting to catch on. I've got some ideas. And then you talked about the guy you played in the finals ended up being your person that you now work with together and created Fantasy Six Pack. What led you? How did that transition go from player to, hey, I think I should be one of those people out there that should provide data, and you do a great job and your site's amazing.
Thank you.
All the people you got there. Talk about that startup of Fantasy Six Pack.
Yeah, man. So honestly, it derived from just me and my buddies. Like, we're all in a bunch of leagues together for so long. And I mean, I didn't win every year, but I did very, very well a lot of years, won many of them as well. And, eventually it got to the point where it was like, we were all sitting around probably drinking one night, 'cause that's what we did, and it was still in my mid 20s. And, a couple of my buddies were like, man, we're watching I think we were watching like Sports Center or something, and like probably something about fantasy football came on the screen, and they're like, man, you should start your own site. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? and they're like, no, you're good at this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I mean, yeah, I like to read, this was, I like to read Matthew Berry and all those guys on ESPN. That was like, the site to go to back then. And, still is, obviously. But, it was kind of one of the only ones, huge back then, at least for me. I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that, I guess. Why not? Let's try it. And so I literally woke up the next morning and was like, well, how do I do this? And went on, I don't know if you remember Blogger. It's like the old Google like blog site. It was free. Okay. I don't even know if it still exists, honestly. Yeah, right. But, I went on and looked it up and was like, oh, I could do this for free. That's kind of cool. I was like, man, I don't know if I could do it myself, though. And I don't know what to call it and blah, blah, blah. And so, I was always in the league with my friend Garrick, and he's the guy who I lost to in the first year. And, we were always pretty competitive and, trash talking to each other. Fun guy. He's still in leagues with me. I was like, Garrick, are you interested? And he's like, sure. Well, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, man, what do we call it? Throwing back a couple names, and I don't know. And all of a sudden he goes, Fantasy Six Pack. We both like beer. We both like fantasy. Let's do it. And I'm like, perfect, yeah. All right, well, is there another way we can spin it so we don't sound like totally alcoholics? And he's like, what if we did like 6 sports? And I'm like, ooh. I mean, we all play fantasy baseball, football, hockey. Well, he did hockey. I did basketball. Right. It's like, what else? He's like, I do NASCAR. And I'm like, okay. I forget what the other one was at the time that we did it. But yeah. So we had 6, right? We had 6. And we still thrive. We still strive for 6 still to this day. Okay. Sometimes, hit or miss with some of the stuff. But we've got our staple of at least 5 right now. We've expanded to DFS and betting and all that stuff. So like 6 is kind of whatever. It's 5 asterisks with a whole lot more on top of it now that, fantasy land has just expanded so far anyway. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got started. And, it's kind of hit or miss up front. It was, I did rankings. I would like copy and paste into like an HTML table. It wasn't pretty. My writing wasn't very good back then. Neither was his. It was just kind of like we were just having fun with it. And it was like, let's see what happens. Pipe dream. Hey, I'm gonna be on ESPN one day. All right, maybe not, but that was kind of the like, oh, they'll just find me, right? And I'm good. Let's do this. And
when did you start? When did the site start? When did you
So it was like December 2010.
Okay, so you were been playing 8 years then by the time you got to that point. So,
and so I started early on it was sort of like hit or miss. Like I would write for a while and then it just sort of wouldn't happen. And then he fell off like a year or two later. And then, so it was just me, and like there was a whole year where I didn't write for the site at all. And then I got back into it, and I forget how I found it, but I started finding like random industry leagues, like the FSWA leagues. And even though I wasn't in FSWA, they would like open them up to people and let them play. And so I started joining those and finding out that I can compete with these guys. And so I started like for real, like thinking about it. And what really propelled the site and really started getting me more interested into it was, like I was really heavy into the rankings. Like that's where I kind of focused on, and you can probably tell is, that's probably what I'm most known for really is the rankings and how well I do in them. But
right.
It was so tedious the way that I was updating it. It was like an Excel spreadsheet, and it was like, man, I got to move this guy here. And I wasn't doing like heavy projection work back then and things like that. So it was like, man, I need to make one small update. This is such a pain. And so I came across Fantasy Pros, and they, I saw their widget tool that they had, and I was like, can I use that? Can I just like use the tool? I don't care if you include me, because back then they had like 15 people on the site, and it was all like the big names from CBS and Yahoo and ESPN on there. And I was like, you don't have to include me. I just want to use your tool. And so they let me use the tool and display my rankings using their widget tool, which made updating my rankings just so amazingly faster and more efficient. And then they finally did include me in the ECR, and I just finally, I finished very well a couple years in a row, and the site just boomed from there, compared to where it was.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah. And I know you've done some an amazing job of being up there in the top, rankings every year. So congratulations to you. Thank you. It's something I've never tried to do because my thing is based on consistency, and that's based on kind of a total points more,
Yeah.
It's just different. So I don't try to do it, because then people are like, well, I don't want to buy from Bob. His rankings suck. Well, my rankings are different than their rankings, because mine's putting in this model of consistency.
Yeah, it is a different mindset.
This guy higher than this guy, where your guys are like, it's total points. So, I get it. That's fine.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't. But anyway,
I will say I don't draft strictly off my rankings. That's just how I see they would finish. Like when I'm building the team, and we've talked about this because I've had you on the show many times about it, I do include, like when I'm deciding between players, consistency matters, when I'm deciding on the players, but just raw points, that's how you have to rank.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just the model that they use. It's not that how you're going to necessarily draft. It's just saying, here's what I think in a total points perspective. But, you might say, but this guy is inconsistent, or a Keenan Allen's more consistent than a Mike Williams, even though Mike Williams may score more points.
Exactly.
So anyway, but all right, so cool. So in like you said, 2010, 2012-ish, you've got Fantasy Six-Pack rolling. You've now one of the top rankers in the country every year, and that's awesome. So now we move into, you've 10 years plus in this, and next thing you know, here we are, and Bob Lund created this expo. And so obviously 2021, because you missed the 2019 and then COVID happened. That was your first expo. Fantasy Six Pack was there live and well. Talk about that first year experience of being there, what your expectations were, what you actually felt, what you liked about the concept after it all happened. And then we'll just kind of, and if you want to lead into then last year, 2022, Fantasy Six Packs had a booth there and has been represented well with you and others. Talk about the guys who came and your experiences that you've had at the expo over the last 2 years.
Yeah, so like you said, I missed 2019. I'll be honest, I didn't even know about it in 2019. It was
thrown together awfully quickly.
It just didn't cross my Twitter timeline. I don't know. It didn't cross.
Yeah, so it all kind of came together. Like we started talking about it, and I actually started working on June 1st, and we had it we did it in August. So, and in between that, I had my prostate taken out. So I'm not sure how I pulled that off. But yeah, there wasn't the Twitter vibe. There wasn't the Twitter hype machine then. At least I didn't have that kind of capacity, or whether I just didn't have enough followers, or people really didn't know who I was, other than the consistency model. I don't remember, but that's what we had. Only 75 people show up for the thing. We had 30 booths. It just kind of came together and in a real quick fashion, and it wasn't. That's why only 75 people showed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, then 2020 came, 2021, and boom, we had 500 people.
Yeah.
But talk about your experience as an attendee.
2021, man, the hype was real for the expo, man. People were so desperate to get out of the house. COVID was finally starting to wind down, and people were feeling safer to go out and like do stuff.
And all that. Yeah.
People were still wearing masks and stuff, but it's still like the amount of people talking about it on Twitter was amazing. And I finally looked over at Keith, not physically because we're not in the same place, but I messaged him on our Slack and was like, I think we need to go. And so we just wrangled up the money and figured it out. I got AJ, my co-host for Fantasy Six Pack Hour, to drive with me out there, and we got the booth the first year, and that was the year I had, they were both fresh, like the 2019 and the 2020 trophy for Fantasy Pros. I had both of them. And, we got the booth. I put them there, got banners. We had some giveaways. It was fun. I'll be honest. I was expecting obviously people are going to want to come to my booth for giveaways. No. No, nobody cared about me, honestly. Like, nobody cared about it. We were on the opposite side of the room from I think we were on the opposite side of the room from Fantasy Alarm and some of the other big ones, and nobody came down our row.
Really?
So
man,
I was like, oh man, well that sucks. So lesson learned, pick a better booth. But it was still a blast. So everybody that did come by the booth, they were so nice. And honestly, it was really cool because, we all talk so much on Twitter, right? And we see some of their faces because some people put videos up or they got their profile picture, but just actually being able to talk to them physically in person was just amazing. And so everybody just felt like we've known each other forever. That was the coolest thing. And there were a lot of just industry people there. But the fans were so excited too. The ones that were there, oh my God, you're so-and-so. Oh yeah, we read all your stuff. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. All right. So it's cool to meet, the Chris Allens and stuff like that I talk to, and I have them on the show and meet you in person and stuff like that. And I tell the story. So in 2021, Trophy Smack came out, and Matt Walsh, right? They're flying over from California, and they had all their trophies and all their stuff all boxed up, and they open up their boxes when they get off the plane from in Ohio, and all the little balls that get screwed on the top, the footballs, shattered. So they didn't have any of their products outside of I guess maybe the belts that they had them back then, and maybe some of the rings. Maybe, yeah. And he sees me walking through the hotel with them. And if anybody knows Matt Walsh, he's a very loud person in a good way. But I had never met the guy before. I never knew who he was. Yeah. He's at the bar, and I'm walking through the hallway, and I hear, yes, yes, yes. And I was like, what in the hell? And then he comes over, and he's got Trophy Smack on, and I was like, oh. So he basically, we were 2 booths down from him. Mm-hmm. So he basically used us anytime somebody came by his booth, he was like, yeah, go down there. So we instantly became best friends because of that. So, it was just amazing to see the people. And I mean, the parties are awesome. It's just so fun, man. If you have never gone, you need to figure out a way to get there. It you make it very cost prohibitive for everybody to make it.
$5 for
honestly
everything you can get to all weekend. Yeah.
And the most expensive thing is getting out there half the time.
Yeah, right.
It's just, that's the tricky part. And
control, but yeah.
So I spend more money getting out there and on food than I do being at the expo, even if I get a booth.
Right.
And that's awesome. So obviously, if you're local, it's a no-brainer. I don't see how you don't go if you're local, even if it's just for the Sunday.
Joe, and I think I've told you this before. Of the 750 people that showed up last year, 80% of them are from out of state.
Yeah.
80%. I mean, that's just dumbfounding to me. Like, people are like, oh, you probably have a ton of local people. No, no,
Yeah.
because it's so hard if they don't live close. Twitter is so easy.
Yeah.
You just start the hype machine and it just flies.
Yeah.
And everybody tells everybody, and everybody's always. I mean, today I think it was I don't know, Jody Smith.
Yeah.
He started. I didn't even realize. And again, I'm so busy. He said, "Hey, we're 100 days away from the expo," and it just started. Just went one after another, one after another, and it was like, "Oh, cool," But if those people don't live in Northeast Ohio, but I have
or they're not following him, like nobody
time,
sees it. It's tough.
Because nobody reads the newspaper, nobody watches TV, and nobody listens to the radio. They listen to it streaming, or they Sirius XM or whatever. So it doesn't no good for me to spend any money on that.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying, like, this year I'm going to do some billboards locally in July and August, and just to see if I can get local people. But I run into people and I just ask them, "Do you play fantasy football?" "Oh, yeah, yeah." I'm like, "Hey, do you know there's an expo that's held for the last 4 years here?" They're like, "No."
No.
I said, "Of course you don't. Now you do. Here's my card. Make sure you sign up."
It's $20. Have fun.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's so awesome.
$20.
And so, the first year, like, it was more like a business trip for me, because I had the booth. I I had lots of my own fun, my own way too. Don't worry about that. But it was more of a business trip, but it was still fun. Last year, I decided to not get a booth because I wanted to experience it a different way. I wanted to be able to go to some of the speakers, the rooms, and some of the other events, and just enjoy it and see what it was. And those are cool, man. Seeing some of those panels, and everybody up there, just realizing, like, man, I know 1, 2, 3. Yep, I know all of them. That's awesome. Like, I've had 4 of the 8 up there on my podcast. I've been on a couple of theirs. Like, it's so cool just to be like, man, had you told me 12 years ago when I started the site that I would have, been, high-fiving Howard Bender at the, from Fantasy Alarm at the expo, or meeting Jeff Ratcliffe, and stuff like that. No way, Not that they were like enormous names back then, but like now they are, and that's so awesome that like they can just say hi to us, and it's no big deal.
And they're so down to earth.
They are
so happy to help. That's the thing that I hear from in a lot of these shows that I've done already. A lot of the people have said, what was amazing to me was the lack of egos that those guys have, because they have all the right in the world to have egos.
Yeah. No doubt.
They're ESPN and they're CBS and they're Yahoo and they're
I mean, Jeff's the one who basically talked me into monetizing the site. As little as I've done it, it's at least a start, and it's something that I had always thought of, but I was so hesitant to do it. We're sitting there at the bar the first Friday night I was there in 2021, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, you've got to do this. You just finished top 5 in the rankings 2 years in a row. Right. What are you doing? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Jeez. But like, he's right though. So I was like, it took me a bit more to like, get all my ducks in a row with it, but we're finally there. And I built some tools to make sure we had like actual things to sell with it. So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, here's my Wibware article, but there's actual like things there. I had to, make sure everything was there. But, the fact that he was, that would be direct competition to him technically. And he was still like, do it. I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. Howard helped answer a few questions for me too. Yeah, same thing. And like, such cool guys, like everybody there. Bob Harris is amazing as well. Bob Harris is he's like probably the nicest guy in the industry, man. He's so cool.
Yeah. Every year I just hug him and I just go, dude, I don't know if I'd be where I am without you, dude, because so many times, whether it's the consistency guide or the expo, I've, Bob, what do you think? Would you be involved? And he's the first one to say yes. Yeah. First one to put me on his show on Fantasy Sports Radio. First one to,
that's awesome.
He's always right there. What can I do to help you? And, that's just amazing to me. And these guys, been in the Fantasy Sports Hall of Fame for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And he's just one of us and is more than happy to help any of us, regardless
I mean,
of
they
who we
just
are,
want to
where
see
we're
it
at, how
grow.
we started,
I mean, that's
whatever.
the thing. They just want to see it grow, and that's the
Right.
amazing thing. And then just meeting everybody else who kind of is in the same landscape is me, and maybe even you. Like I don't know. I put you a little bit higher up. You got a bit more of a business model. You're running a whole expo, but it's like seeing the people around. Like, hey man, like we got into this around the same time. This is awesome, man. Let's just do this together. And you're right. Like, yeah, it could be like your fantasy six pack. I can't. I can't see myself with
you're
you.
stealing
Like,
all my money. I can't.
or you're stealing readers from me, or whatever.
Right.
Like, no, nobody cares. Like, we're all just here to have fun. Let's be
We
real.
all have different expertise too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, mine's consistency. Yours is expertise is in rankings. I mean, if you're going to win in fantasy football, if you're going to win if you're really serious about winning your league, and I don't care who you're playing against, your grandparents or your best friends, you need different people's expertise. You need your rankings, my consistency, Jeff Radcliffe's, whatever, Mike Clay's, Howard Bender's. All of them have different expertise and different knowledge bases of how they look at things,
or just different opinions, and that's the thing.
Football one way, you're not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's more to me. It's more that, like, yeah, we all might be, like, let's say, we're all good at rankings, right? But we're gonna have different opinions.
Right.
And we can tell you why. It's your. I always say this: don't just trust me. Mm-hmm. That's stupidity. Right. I don't trust just me. I'll go look at other people's rankings and be like,
exactly.
Well, why does he have him 5 spots higher than me? What am I missing? And go read about it and be like, I mean, maybe he's on to something, and I might not move him 5 total spots up, but maybe I'll move him 2.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. We're all learning, we're all evolving with it, and you've got to take in all the information you can and then make your own decision. That's, we're here to,
exactly.
In my opinion, we're here to teach you, not just tell you what to do.
Yeah. I always tell people when I said my consistency guide is the fries and the Happy Meal. Go get your big stuff, go to, Bender or your site or, Ratcliffe or whatever. That's your Big Mac. And then get to your fries for your consistency. And then
I wouldn't say that, man. You won an award off that thing. That thing's pretty sweet. I like it.
Anyway, but so Joe, talk about 2023. You're going to be coming back again this year with the gang.
Yep.
Anything new and exciting people should be looking forward to when they come to booth number 32?
Yeah, man. We'll be right on that corner, I believe. We're right on the turn, right before that first social area. I believe we're gonna have some games for you to play. We're gonna have a little water pong action. Take 6 shots, see how many you can hit out of 6, and win that prize. Kind of like carnival prize, right? Type of thing. But it'll be site related, fantasy related kind of thing. It'll be cool. We haven't totally decided everything yet. I'm also planning. I'm also at the same time trying to plan a live Scott Fishbowl draft. So this was a lot at the same time. So that's fun. It's awesome, but yeah, it's a lot going on. It's all at the same time. But yeah. Me and Keith and AJ, Dave Eddy, who is heavy into our DFS content over there, Fantasy Six Pack. I know Mike LaPlante's going. I think Davis Pang is coming back, our big best ball guy. I'm not sure totally who else. Dennis Sosik usually goes because I think he lives in Cleveland. So he's just like, I'll drive. I mean, he stays the night, but he's right there.
Right. Perfect.
But I'm not totally sure who else is going yet. I'm still trying to talk some more in, but we represent pretty well the last few years, and I'm hoping to again. So, and like I said, we've got memberships to sell. We'll definitely be showing off some of the stuff that we've got. We have our draft cheat sheets and things like that. So definitely got at least a little bit more to show this time. The first time we had our booth, it was just kind of like, hi, here we are. That was kind of it.
No, I know everybody kind of evolves.
So I was like, well,
you guys have cool. I mean, I remember I have the Fantasy Six Pack shirts and hats.
Yep.
And
yeah, we've got a store now. So I don't know if I'm gonna have like any with me. I might, but I'm more like, hey, if you win a shirt, just tell me your size. I'll order it and send it to you. I hate to have there's a bunch of larges and be like, you're a small. I can't give it to you.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago is when you were giving away the $250 entries into, was it Real Sports, the not
The RT Sports. Yeah, so I'm going to be hitting up those guys again. RT Sports. We've got draft boards that we give away.
So that year when you gave that away, I won one of them.
Oh, nice.
And I actually won my league and won $1,500.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So I was like,
I've done well in those, but I've never won that much. That's good.
Yeah, because I think because it was like a $250 entry per, and it was a 12-team league, and I think the winner, I won $1,500.
Nice.
Yeah. So hey, there you go. Cool. See, you can make
we will absolutely be giving some of that away as well. Those will probably raffle off. We had signed jerseys that year too. I think AJ just had some of those laying around. I don't know why, but he did, and he was like, "Yeah, I can give them away." It's like, if you want to. So yeah, I mean, we'll be giving away some stuff as well. Shirts and memberships and things like that for sure. With like the Pong thing for sure. It'll be a good time. I'm hoping to have a little more entertaining booth this year than we did 2 years ago.
Will you guys be creating a flag football team again?
We did not do one last year. So I may only be 40, but my body is acting like it's 55. I've got bad backs, bad shoulders, and last year I was going through like rehab for a torn rotator cuff.
Oh,
and so
okay, yeah, all right. So
me playing football is probably not.
You could be a coach. You could
some of the dudes that some of the guys for my site wanted to play. I was like, make your own team. You don't need me. But they didn't do it. I was in the Kings Classic draft last year too, and I was pretty toasty after that. I was like, I need to go take a nap. So I was kind of glad I needed a break before the Saturday night festivities. So, I heard that the flag football tournament was pretty fun. So I'll probably try to stick around and at least watch some of it this year.
This year we're going to be playing in the dome. So
in the dome. Okay. Yeah.
On the field. So. Cool.
That'll be awesome.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you again for joining us. Once again, as always, thank you again for being a part of the Expo for the last couple of years. And once again, here for 2023. Tell everybody, website, Twitter, everything they need to know to follow Fantasy Six Pack and all the guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So fantasysixpack.net is the site. I am on Twitter at F6P_Joe. The site is at Fantasy Six Pack. It's all spelled out, no numbers. And yeah, man, like I said, so, we do football clearly, but we also do baseball, we do basketball, we do hockey, we do golf. We mix in, DFS and betting content. We have a free Discord. There's a link to it on our site. Members get a little bit extra access and customized league advice questions straight to me and, anybody else that in the staff. So that's part of the membership. That is, in my opinion, the most invaluable part of it. But it's pretty awesome when we get to help people. It's a good feeling. It's something I really like about doing this too. It's almost like my favorite part is just being able to help people. And teach
that's always
them.
Been mine too. I always tell people, while I do make a little money and charge for the book and the site and stuff, but I always said that the best part of every year is getting those emails when people go, dude, you led me to the playoffs, or this is my first championship and I'm so happy. And I never heard about consistency and, or I never heard about your site. And, and man, I just such a great thing this year. And so thank you so much for all your help. And that's what it's about, man.
Yeah. I love it.
People, the money's nice and it's okay. I don't charge a lot, $10, $20. But I said, that's the best feeling is those emails. And, especially if it's something real personal, you can tell, like, I remember getting one email from a wife, a woman. It was like, I followed your site. I bought your book. I hid it from my husband. And I never even made the playoffs before. And this year I beat him in the championship. And it was the best feeling ever. And like, you're awesome. And I'm still never going to tell him about it. I'm like, okay.
As long as somebody's buying it in your family, I'm good. I mean, we had a guy last year. We only had we launched football memberships last year for the first time, and it was a small number. We did it pretty late, so I knew it wasn't gonna like blow up. Right. But I remember specifically one guy in our Discord wrote at the end of the year was like, I've been in this league for 10 years, never made the playoffs. Not only did I make the playoffs this year, but I won the whole damn thing. And we were all like, that is so sweet.
Yeah,
like, that is an awesome feeling. I mean, the guy was just, barraging us with questions, but like nobody cared. We'll answer all of them. I don't care.
Right?
That's what we're here for. So.
All right. Well, Joe, thanks again for being on. To everybody, Joe Bond, Fantasy Six Pack. Thanks again for being on the Fantasy Football Expo podcast series. We'll be back again, as we are, twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Make sure you check them out. Subscribe to the site, and then you'll get an automatic notification when these get posted. So, Joe, see you in August. Everybody take care. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, everybody. Do you want to continue to learn more about the Fantasy Football Expo? Well, then subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Expo registration is now open, so make sure you visit thefantasyfootballexpo.com to get your tickets now. And come and experience fantasy football's greatest weekend in Canton, Ohio this August 11th through the 13th.